Hello, everybody. It is my pleasure to be here today to speak with you all. Um, it's such a rare opportunity to be able to do this and to give the message, and I just really am grateful for that opportunity. So, as you guys know, whenever I talk, I like to use slides. It just allows me to focus and hopefully for you to focus too on the message. So, I'm going to ask Scott if he'll bring up our slides. Our theme this year, or this month, I should say, is the universal voice. And around the globe, there is one song playing, and that is the song of life itself. That is a universal voice. And we are not only of the Spirit, but we are also in the Spirit. And as we remember our divine essence, we take personal responsibility for all our actions while extending generosity and compassion to others. The more we deepen our practice, all benefit, including the whole of humanity, the Earth's creatures, and Earth itself. Okay, I see it's loading. I'm just going to keep going here while Scott figures that out. Okay. So, as God is, I am. This is a great mantra to be using with yourself and in our community. And you can stand in front of the mirror and say this to yourself every day. As God is, so I am. And sometimes in the beginning, when you begin to do that, it's a little difficult because your mind, your ego tries to give you some thoughts with that, saying, what are you talking about? As God is, so I am. Well, that little piece of God is inside of each and every one of us. And so as God is, so I am. This is one of the fundamental truths of our teachings. Each one of us is divinely connected to that one source, that one divine intelligence. Now, Ernest Holmes speaks clearly that as I am, so we are all. Our goal is to realize not only our own individual power, but to see and work in concert with that same power that exists in and through all souls everywhere we meet and we don't meet. We are in it. We cannot escape it. So today we have an essential question. And the question is, how can we connect today to the universal voice and bring this into our lives with more clarity, more love, more compassion, more peace, and live this truth not just in this moment or day, but in all moments of every day. And that seems to be the toughest thing, to do it every moment of every day, because we forget. There you go. We got it. That works, Scott. That's great. So, because this is January, this is the perfect time of year when we reflect upon the past and we bring into clarity that which we would like to change or at least modify in some way in the next year. You know, there's so many people, this is the time they go to the gym, right? And it's just that time of new beginnings. So I thought we should look at some of the tools that we can use to continuously align ourselves with this yearning. And those tools are really things that we do during our service. Prayer, number one tool that you can use every day, every moment. And I personally believe that everything we say, do, experience is actually a prayer, and we're in the middle of it all the time. So prayer is that number one thing. Meditation. Meditation is a great tool We did a meditation with Bob today. It was fabulous. It really centered ourselves. I know it centered me. It gave me such peace in knowing that I was going to be speaking today. So that was wonderful. And then study, personal study, reading great books by authors who are spreading the message of this inherent goodness and this oneness that we all have inside us. Taking classes here at the center. Our practitioners teach them, and they're just really wonderful. Community, that's why we're here today. Community, we're building a strong community. We're sharing ideas. These are all things that really keep us connected. And then the basic thing is really just asking for help. I don't know about you, but there was a time in my life when I had a lot of things going on, and I was too proud to ask for help. I know now that that's kind of not the way to operate. I'll just say that. Asking for help is a very good thing. So by rooting ourselves in the fundamental spiritual laws of life itself, we have an opportunity to apply these teachings in our lives as they are lived today, bringing ourselves into alignment, which supports us in rebooting ourselves into 2023 and listening to the universal voice. So I think this is funny. Hello, is anybody home? The universal voice calls to all of us equally. It resides in us and as us and who we are. We cannot help but experience it. We can ignore it. We can pretend we don't hear it, that little voice in our head. But when we open our minds and our hearts, then we can hear it. So we have to listen, open our hearts. I know Reverend Patrick always used to say, we don't let spirit in, we actually open our hearts and let spirit out. And as we do that, we begin to recognize that the same is true for everyone around us. And as it is of me, so it is of we. In recent months, I've been involved in some courses of psychology and coaching. And it's been really, really exciting to meet people from around the world. Just this last week during a Zoom call, I spent time with people who were in Sweden, Costa Rica, Canada, Honduras, Abu Dhabi, just to name a few places. The biggest takeaway that I got from being on calls with all these international people who are just people like us, right? We all have the same questions. We all have similar problems. We're all unique and yet the same, with different experiences that have led us to different beliefs. But it's just so crazy how much we are the same. We just don't even realize it. We think, oh, well, people are of that culture, they have to be so different. They really aren't. They're humans just like us with the same experiences. And so are we listening? Are we curious? Are we connecting? Are we plugging in to the one universal voice speaking to us daily, wanting us to hear the sounds of love, compassion, peace, and uniqueness? Are we seeing the world as one expression of the divine? Like a moving, living, breathing kaleidoscope of color, all connected to one single source, one mind, one heart, one love. So recently I heard a story, and this story, it's a legendary story. It's a story of a tribal community that sang a song that never ended. So the legend goes like this. The song started many, many, many years ago, and women would go down to the river to wash out their clothes. And they would pick up on sounds of the wind and the storm. And so as they're washing clothes in the river or bathing, they began singing. And as they went on their business, they kept singing. And when a new person would show up, they would start singing with them. And then one person would leave, and the singing would just continue on and on. So as others arrived, they continued to pick up the singing, and then they would leave, and the singing just continued on and on. And I thought, this is such a great simile because our lives are not finite. They are a journey, and we have this little short span of time, this journey we're on a planet Earth. And this is it, and we have to make the most of it. Our lives are like that song that's being played since the beginning of time. There never is an end state. There never is a state you reach so that you're ready. It's ever evolving. The process doesn't always seem perfect. In fact, a lot of times it feels really messy. It feels really awful. It also feels stagnant sometimes. It can feel really good. It can feel joyful. And we should be at every moment, we should know we are exactly where we should be at every moment, and it is all perfect. Our lives are like dancing in the vibrancy of love from this universal voice. Our breath of life is a verb. We are constantly evolving. Our song is never complete. There is always a new verse, a new adventure to experience, and more work to do, more study to do, more love to experience. We never truly arrive. So Ernest Holmes says everyone has Christ within. And I believe that. And that spark of the universal mind, the universal love, that's that spark of Christ within each and every one of us. And everyone has inherent God power within. We are the co-creators of everything in our lives. We are the ones we've been waiting for. When we see ourselves in this way, we're being invited into a realm of consciousness that is open at the top, that is available, that is listening, that has an open heart, and that is infinite in its ability to express. This awareness moves us out of the traditional roles of hero, villain, victim, and moves us into a world where we can see each other as creators, collaborators, and coaches. When we work together, contributing to our community, ideas and creativity flourish. We study and learn together, finding new ways to listen and be available for one another. We pray together, knowing the one mind and the one voice. We become spirit working with spirit and co-creating a world that works for everyone. So now I invite you to accept the divine gift. Ernest Holmes explains there's another way. Rather than dwelling on the past, we look to the spirit for the answer. We apply a new thought. Today I am born anew. This is where the whole phrase of being born again actually comes from. But this is from the Living Science of Mind, page 186. Today I am born anew. This new birth comes through a new outlook on life, a new way of thinking, a new sense of our relationship to our environment, to the people around us, to ourselves, and to God. Again, that's from page 186, Living the Science of Mind. This principle that Ernest Holmes speaks of knows nothing of precedent. So what does that mean? That means the past is the past and today is the present and we move forward. And the past really, when we are reborn and that new outlook on life, today is the beginning of a new day. Today is a new day, and today I align myself with the highest idea of spirit and vow to live from that. Each day I get to begin again. Each day I get to be born again. Look into the mirror and say, I love you. This is something we hear practitioners say is a great mantra. It's a great thing to do. It can be really, really hard in the beginning. But once you try and you look into the mirror and look into your own eyes and you say, I love you, you can actually see the Spirit of God within yourself. Something that I've learned to do as part of my morning routine is I do some yoga stretches and some breathing exercises. And I stand in front of the mirror and I give myself a really big hug. And you can do this with me right now. Give yourself a really big hug because it feels so good. And if we were in a room of people, we would all hug each other, but we'll hug ourselves today. And one of the things I say to myself is every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And I'll say it on my right side, and then I say it on my left side, and then I just kind of laugh because it's like every day I really am getting better and better in every way possible. Maybe it's just, a little smidge, but all of that adds up. And then another thing to say, and as part of my routine, as God is, I am. So when you're looking into the mirror, as God is, I am, God within. And in doing this little exercise every day, you spiral upwards and you begin to experience life as spirit. So I just love this. If you want sunshine, step out into the sun. If you have locked yourself away in a dark closet, why not come out into the light? If you've been feeling that everything is against you and no one really cares for you, know that God is in everyone and meet the God in others and see what happens. This is also from Living the Science of Mind, page 187. If you want sunshine, step out into the sun. So I wanted to share at this point just a little personal story. I am so fortunate and blessed and grateful to be living in what's called an air park. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a piece of land that has an airstrip in the middle, and then it is surrounded by 40 homes and hangars. So everybody here is a pilot. My husband's a pilot, I'm not. And so the boys bring their toys. They bring their airplanes and they park it in their hangar, and then you live next door to it. So it's really an incredible, wonderful place to live. And this was a dream that my husband has had since he was very, very young. He always wanted to live in an airport. I personally was not I really didn't care. But the point of telling this story is that about 4 years ago, we decided that we were going to change our lives. We knew we didn't want to stay in Connecticut because we had no family there. And for some other reasons too, but that's where we were, and that's where we had worked for 26 years. So about 4 years ago, I had always anticipated that we would end up in Montana when we retired because my husband's from there. And when it came down to the conversation between us, he said, no, I really don't want to live in Montana. It's too cold. And I said, okay, I guess that's okay. And where do you want to go? So long story short, he embarked on a journey driving a car across country, and he came upon this air park. And he comes home, and he actually went out to lunch, I guess, with a few of the men who lived here. he came home and he said, I want to move to this air park. And I'm like, are you nuts? And we sat down and we put together a plan of how we were going to do it. And it involved so many pieces. It's like that life planning when you're in the moment, you plan things out and then life happens. And we had to remodel our home. We had to sell our home. We had to sell another property. We had to sell our furniture. We had to find a place to live. In fact, we lived in 5 different locations between that home and the apartment that we're living in now. We lived in a cabin on the island in Candlewood Island. We lived there. We lived 2 different hotels at 2 different times. We came down here. We lived in a hotel for about a week, which I guess you could call that a vacation, but we were here putting our plans together. And in all of this time, there were things that happened. I broke my ankle. Hello, that'll put you flat on your back for a while. So it wasn't all smooth sailing. In fact, there were pieces of this journey that were really, really messy. But it's just so fascinating because we set our intention and we did it through prayer and we did it through being guided. What should we do next? And now it's so exciting because we are now about 2 months from moving into our brand new dream home. I have a music studio. He's got his toys in a hanger. And it's just such a really, really exciting time of our lives. And so it's January. This is a great time for you to set an intention. Set an intention for 3 years out. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 4 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And when you set that intention, write it down. Whatever you choose to do next, begin by interacting with spirit and spirit that is with others. Talk to people, find out how do you do things. You're not going to know all the things that you need to do to make that dream come true, that thing that you want, that life that you want, the life you want to design. And I would invite you also to begin interacting with spirit that is within others. See the crying baby and its parent in the grocery store as divine beings. Recognize spirit in the eyes of the homeless on the street. We are all reflections of that day, of that divine. We are all reflections of it. And compassion through your journey is just so, so important. Begin each day recognizing your connection to the one life, the one love, and through this, hear yourself through the divine voices of those around you. I promise you that through prayer and through setting your intention and having a vision, magic will happen. And it's a miracle. And it's the miracle that you need to expect. Just listen, pray, and smile. And I thank you all.